Johnny, Law and Order in the house. What's up?
Pretty united now, Medalli.
Yeah.
What's the feeling like, man? I mean, obviously you've been out here to work and to commentate, but now you're out here to fight. What's the feel?
It feels good. It's crazy that in like a 12-month span, this is my third time in Abu Dhabi, and for each time it's been for like a different role. The first time I came out here, I cornered my teammate at a UAE Warriors event. Then I came out here as an analyst for the last stint on Fight Island, and then now I'm here as a competitor. So this place is like becoming my second home, but the hospitality is great. And it's cool to come here and compete, especially when you get to come here and get a feel. You know, I got to go behind the scenes and kind of see how things were at the Flash Forum. And I know we're not there. We're going to be at the new arena. But I love the environment. If it's a good place to have a fight week, it's good here. It's good to be here and have my whole team along for the ride. So I'm very excited for the 20th.
I was going to ask you, does the familiarity like help out a little bit? I mean, I got to think, there's always some anxiety. There's always some nerves when you're in a big spot like this. Does being so familiar with the place like help out?
Yes and no. I mean, it's always fun going to a new place, and like going into the unknown always makes fight weeks exciting. It's not like, a place like Raleigh, North Carolina can be exciting when you've never been there. You know what I mean? Or just any place that you've never been before. But it's definitely cool to come out here and get a feel. And, I can definitely say that last stint on Fight Island being here, I definitely was like, wow, I would like to have a fight week here. Like, I've never fought internationally, so this is my first time fighting abroad, and I like the idea of coming here and having a fight week. I mean, who doesn't want to have a fight week at this hotel? I mean, this place is unreal. So it's so cool to be here and have my boys along for the ride. Last time I was by myself. Last time I had like the end of the hall suite, and I was just all by myself all the time. I'm like, I got a nice suite. We got a few rooms. I got my boys with me. My coach and my teammates, they're my best friends. So it's cool to go on this journey and bring your best friends along for the ride.
Overall, like, how would you describe the last year? Because I feel like, you were riding this momentum and you had to put everything on hold, right? But I mean, I guess it's the right thing to do, right? It's the mature decision, whereas maybe you wouldn't have done that in the past. So how would you describe the past year?
The past year was challenging. I mean, I got the biggest win of my career, January 25th, 2020. And just things, I had surgery, the pandemic hits. It got very challenging from a professional standpoint. And like when the gyms are closed and you're sidelined with an injury, seems like there's no light in sight, you know what I mean? And things really shaped up the second half of the year. UFC, I'm very thankful that they put me in the spot they put me in as an analyst. It kept me busy, got my mind back in it, and I started to see the light again, and I started to recover well from the surgery. And now I'm here, and I'm healthier than I've ever been going into a fight. It's so cliche for a guy to be like, I had the best camp of my life, like, fuck, how many times have you guys heard that? You know what I mean? But I'm telling you, this is the healthiest I've been going into a fight, I can honestly say, in my whole UFC career. This injury that I had to address had been something I've been dealing with since I was like 16 years old. And it just kept getting worse and worse. And now it's behind me. Now I'm healthy. I'm not dragging my leg behind me. And I'm very healthy. And so, it was a very challenging year, but challenging times make strong people. So I'm glad I was able to get through it, and now we're here. So, looking back on it, I'm thankful I went through all that.
Yeah, last thing for me, I mean, this was already a big fight, right? I mean, it's a proven, commodity, a contender. I mean, but when you get elevated to the main event, do you think that means that the payoff on the other side will be grander? Like, you'll take a bigger step up in the rankings you'll be offered because it's a main event fight? Yeah,
100%. When you have the more spotlight on you, the better, and it's like, it kind of starts from the bottom of the card and goes its way up to the top. Like, just to be in the UFC and be like on the early prelims, that's great. And then when you're headlining the prelims, it's like, okay, that's cool. I'm getting more exposure. You make the main card. All right, I'm getting the push. Co-main event, main event. It kind of starts from the bottom and works its way to the top. And so it's good to be in this spot, and me and Neil were both very deserving guys. He's been so active last year. I mean, he went 3-0, 3 big wins, capped it off, beating Robbie Lawler, former champion. But this fight makes a lot of sense when you look at it. Like, we're both on 3-fight win streaks. Both of our last wins were against former world champions. It's a fight that makes sense, and I feel like we both deserve the push and made the best man win. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm excited for my second headlining spot in the UFC on ESPN. It's like, you got to pinch yourself, man. It seems like it's a dream, but I'm ready to seize this opportunity and make it mine and get my hand raised.
Mike, I asked Neil yesterday how he saw the fight going. He came out and said, he wants to put so much pressure on you that you reconsider fighting for it again, and maybe just move full time to broadcasting and all that kind of stuff. What do you make of that?
I think about that before every fight. So I'd be a liar if dude, every fight I've had in my entire career, going back to my amateur days, I've always been like, it's intense pressure. This is a pressure cooker situation. So, I'll probably be thinking that on fight night. He's not wrong. But when does Neil not want to put a tremendous amount of pressure on his opponents and try and get him to break? I mean, that's what he wants to do to every guy, and that's fine. You know what I mean? But don't worry, I already do it to myself, man. Like when I fought my first amateur fight, I built fence, I did construction, and I remember warming up in the back. And this is first week of June 2008. I'm warming up in the back of the Smoky Club and my coach's amateur show, and he's in the back there, and I'm thinking, fuck, I don't know if I want to do this anymore, man. My construction job's not that bad. I mean, I'm doing this for free. This is crazy, So every fight you put yourself in that situation. But dude, you got to face your fears and go out and fight. That's how you build character. So, yeah, man, to me, it's irrelevant. So, it's good that whatever you got to tell yourself to hype you up to go out and compete, do it. You know what I mean? But I already put it, there's no, physically, I know he's going to put a lot of pressure on me, but from a mental standpoint, nobody puts more pressure on me than I put on myself. So, I saw that little thing. I laughed at it. I was like, God damn it. Like, that's funny. I freaking, before every fight, I'm like, man, this is freaking crazy. What the hell am I doing? I'm kind of like Felder in a sense. I'm always just like riding that wave,
Well, I was going to ask, actually, funny that you say Felder. Like, people have said that about him too. Like, he's halfway in, halfway out. Do you think that's something, because you're doing the commentary, people are going to say, oh, like, he's not 100% committed to his fighting career. He's already thinking about what's coming after, and maybe they use that to like question your motivation or something like that?
Would you say that to DC? Would you say that to Dominic Cruz? I mean, just because somebody has a couple of hiccups and they're able to have these, essentially two jobs, that doesn't mean anything. You know what I mean? Like, if anything, I think it benefits you when your life revolves around this sport even more. Like, you're not just like, it's not like it's a job that takes you away from fighting. Like, to be a commentator, to be an analyst, you have to watch fights. You have to break down fighters. You have to look. I'm a fan of the sport as it is. So is Paul. But it's like when you get into these roles, into these jobs as a commentator or an analyst, now you're not just watching as a fan. You have to watch from an analytical standpoint all the time. Even if you're not, at this point now, if I'm watching a pay-per-view and if I'm watching a live pay-per-view, I watch as a fan and I'm starting to take little notes that I'm going to use going forward. Like, it's easy for people to say that, you know what I mean? When somebody's, maybe not doing as well as they should, or let me rephrase that. Not when somebody's having some hiccups and they're balancing both jobs. Of course, people are going to say that. Anytime somebody loses a fight, no matter what they're doing, everybody jumps all over them. You know what I mean? So it's easy for those people to say that, but us people that are in these positions in the broadcasting in the broadcasting world, we know that this isn't a hindrance. The UFC wouldn't hire us while we're competing if it was going to hold us back from performing. We're fighters before we're anything. You know what I mean? So if they put an active fighter in these positions, they're not going to do that if this is going to get in the way of what's most important, and that's fighting. So I think that's just rubbish. You know what I mean? I don't think that there's no interference, and I've had a lot of people not ask me that question from that standpoint, but a lot of people be like, how is being an analyst, how does this tie into your fighting career? And I go, it ties in great. Like, I'm having to sharpen my mind. There's only so many ways you can sharpen the mental aspect of fighting. You can go see a sports psychologist, you can go to a hypnotist. There's only so many things you can do. Whereas being a commentator and analyst, this is a very rare tool that we can use to sharpen our minds for the sport. So it's very beneficial.
Do you think Neil gets the respect he deserves from fans, considering he has the second most wins in welterweight history?
It's hard to get the respect from the fans as it is. You know what I mean? And bless their hearts. The fans are what make this possible. The fans are the reason why you guys get paid to do what you do. They're the reason why we get paid to do what we do. And I think we all have a certain amount of gratitude for that. But it's not easy to win the fans over, and it's sure as hell easy to get them to turn against you. You know what I mean? But I don't think Neil really cares about what the fans think. I think all of his peers give him the respect he deserves. We all know how talented he is. We all know how tough he is. We see him for what he's worth. You know what I mean? I don't see him as a guy that really puts much thought into like wanting to win the fans over. I think the guy's super tough. He's, like you said, second for all time wins at welterweight, and that speaks volumes for how good of a fighter he is. And it's great to be able to compete against guys like that. But I don't think you got to take, the fans can be very, they can be very harsh, but you got to take it with a grain of salt, man. Be more focused on what your peers think than what the people on the outside think.
Was there any fear that they would pull Neil to replace Hamza?
Oh yeah, yeah. I woke up that morning. The one training trip I took to Tucson. I played it safe this camp. I didn't want to go. None of my teammates have had COVID, so I'm trying to we're all trying to stay healthy, and so I'm like, we got to travel. I don't have a guy that's 6'3" in my gym. I don't have a guy with 80-inch reach in my gym. So we made one traveling trip to Arizona to go get some looks for a couple of days, and sure enough, like the first morning I wake up there, I'm like headline on my phone. I think it's like, I think it was an MMA Junkie notification. Hamza Chimaev out of the main event. I'm like, fuck. God dang it. Like right when I get here, like shoot. So of course I'm talking to my manager and I'm like, I'm like, hey, we're probably going to lose this fight, huh? And he's like, I don't know. It's hard to say. Do you want to throw your name in the mix to fight Leon? I said, well, yeah, for sure. You know what I mean? Like, if it was up to me, let's keep the Magny fight. But, yeah, definitely throw my name in the hat for Leon. Who wouldn't? You know what I mean? For a guy that's ranked that high, and I'm peaking in terms of my physical conditioning. And when you start peaking, you're just ready to fight anybody. And, and so I'm like, yeah, throw my name in the hat for Leon. We'll see what happens. So I head to the gym and we get done with our sparring session. I was like, hey, I want to go 2 extra rounds. Just because I'm like, I might be in this main event. I don't know what's going on. I'm not glued to my phone. This is happening. I'm like waking up, these messages are happening, and then I'm off to the gym within, 15, 20 minutes. And, and on the way to the gym, I'm like rushing, like watching film on like a few guys, like watching a couple minutes of each guy I think I could be fighting. You know what I mean? There's a lot of guys tweeting stuff. Like every guy that's tweeting something, I'm like, okay, I need to watch like 2 minutes on this guy, 2 minutes on this guy. And then I get done with the training session, and sure enough, we find out it's me and Magny in a main event. So I think it worked out for the best. I know it sucks seeing Leon on the sidelines as a fighter and as a fan. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the sport, and I like seeing Leon compete. He's super fun to watch. But his misfortune kind of played in favor for me and Neil, and I'm not upset about it at all. I'm very excited for this opportunity. I feel like we both deserve it, and I think a lot of people would agree. And speaking on the note about fans, the feedback that came out on Twitter, I was like super stoked on, because I'm like thinking we're just going to get bashed. Like they're going to be like, this fight sucks. And there's a few guys like, oh, this is going to be a snooze fest, like this and that. But like the vast majority of the fans were like, this is a banger, like good for these guys. So I'm like, hell yeah. You know what I mean? Like it's good to see the fans rallying behind us and, and recognizing that this has the potential to be a very, very fun fight. And we have 5 rounds to scrap. So, what's there not to enjoy about that?
Was it good to hear, I don't know if you heard Dana's comments about this too. They told John the other day, said how much you and Neil were really deserving of this position. Obviously it wasn't the original plan, but he's more than happy with where it ended up.
Yeah, I did hear about that, and it's always good when the boss gives you some recognition. Neil throwing his name in the hat to fight Hamza and fight. He even threw his name in the hat to fight Mike Perry. If you guys recall that, like I think he slid into your comments or an MMA Junkie thing and was like, "Hey, I'll fight Perry at 185" when he lost his opponent. So this is a guy that's like, he's game to fight all the time, and he's a guy that he's always in shape. And I fought the toughest season Ultimate Fighter, in my opinion. And, I've got a lot of big wins in my career. I'm on a roll right now at 170 pounds. And it's cool that the boss acknowledges that we're both deserving of this opportunity. And, we wouldn't be here. I think that if he didn't think we could put the weight of this card on our back, I think that he would have found some way to salvage this Leon fight. So it's an honor to have the big man, have Uncle Dana say, yeah. We'll give it to these guys. They deserve it, so we won't let them down.
Speaking of the Ultimate Fighter, when Neil came in here, he said that this bubble is more boring than the Ultimate Fighter house. Do you agree?
Well, if we weren't fighting each other, I'd just tell them to come to room 1310 and play some Mario Kart with me and the boys, because I'm having a good time. I'm having a blast. You know what I mean? We got the Switch upstairs. We're playing vids. We're getting some good laughs and stuff. Watching some TV series and stuff. I'm having a good time. So it's. Teach their own. I love it here. I'm totally like, I love the W. I'm walking around seeing all the people I saw before and got the boys with me. Like, I'm having a good time, you know. So maybe when the fight gets over, win or lose, he wants to play some Mario Kart, make the most of this last leg of the trip after the fight. We'll have a good time.
You were on a much longer season of The Ultimate Fighter as well.
Yeah, it's very true. double what he was. Double the season that he was on. Yeah, for sure. So I don't mind it. I'm like callous to this stuff. Like, yeah, cooped up, bubble, hotel, house, mansion, room, whatever. It's all good. I'm even at the Holiday Inn. I didn't even care. I'm like, 2 days at the Holiday Inn, man. Just relax and stretch, make the most of it, you know. So it's all good. It's all good.
When you were saying with your training, you know, you talk about the injuries that you got over, you couldn't spar much, that you'd had to put that on the back burner for your other fights. You said you have been sparring ahead of this. What difference has that made to you being able to get back in there and properly get at it?
It's great, you know what I mean? That last camp was when I fought RDA was a nightmare. Like, it was like, you get your confidence, at least for myself, I get my confidence from my preparation, is particularly live training, like grappling, wrestling, sparring. Like, that's where you get your confidence. And when you have those good days, and even when you have your bad days, and just knowing like, man, I got my ass kicked in sparring today, but hey, I made it through all my rounds. Like, that's where you get your confidence. And going into a fight against a guy like RDA, who's super dangerous, who in my opinion is one of the most well-rounded guys in the UFC. He can submit you, he can knock you out, he can wrestle you, he can kind of do everything. I was like, it was very scary for me to go into that fight knowing like I'm not at my best. You know what I mean? And my coach did a phenomenal job. Rick Little did a phenomenal job keeping me stimulated through the camp, because he could see, I mean, my body language, it was written all over me that I was scared. You know what I mean? It's more scared. I'm scared for every fight, but more scared than I've ever been when I can't even spar. And he did a good job keeping me stimulated and coming up with drills and certain ways I can do live training without getting my face hit. I mean, the fracture was bad. I mean, it looked like a spider web on the right side of my nose. I'm lucky that it didn't end up on this side of my face, me looking like Picasso. You know what I mean? So, or a Picasso painting. But yeah, fuck. I don't know what Picasso looks like, but I know his paintings. I know his paintings are a little abstract. but it just feels good going into this fight. And like, dude, I gotta push myself. I gotta push the live rounds. And that's just been great. So that's where I'm getting a lot of this confidence from, is the fact that like I've been able to train hard, go live, hook it up, and I'm really prepared for this fight.
I always think it's interesting as well when I look at records, and obviously I see you fought Masvidal many years ago. Back then, did you think, because he had a career year really in 2019, and now look where he is, one of the kind of pay-per-view stars of the UFC. Did you see that for him when you fought him then? And I guess for yourself moving forward, it showed you how quickly things can turn.
Well, on that note, there's a reason why I'm getting into these roles as an analyst and things of that sort, is because I'm a huge fight nerd. Like, so I got into that Jorge Masvidal fight because my original opponent got in some law trouble, Reza Madadi, and got pulled from the fight. And so Joe Silva, he calls me with some names. I didn't like him at the time. I'm undefeated. I'm like thinking I can beat anybody. I'm like, I want the list of everybody available. And Jorge Masvidal's on the list. And I mean, dude, back then a lot of people didn't know who he was, but I'm looking at this as a guy that fought for the Strikeforce title. This guy's super tough. This guy beat Eve Edwards, who Eve Edwards is, in my opinion, one of the best lightweights of all time. I'm like, this guy's in the UFC now. Like, this is the guy I want to fight. This is the best guy available. And I've always recognized his skills. And, we all saw the fight planned out. I had a great first round, one of the best first rounds of my life. But, he got the best of me. But it didn't surprise me at all. Like, he deserves to have the success that he has because he trains hard. He's put his time in the sport. And it's good to see him break out and become the superstar that he has become now. So, I knew he had the skills back then, but there's a certain amount of luck in this sport required to get to the next levels. You know what I mean? Like, it takes, a Chris Weidman injury to get Michael Bisping into a title fight. It takes, a flying knee KO of Ben Askren. Certain things where you can work it, you can be the hardest working guy in the gym, but there's always going to be a certain element of luck that's going to be required to get you to the next level. and I'm glad that he found that. It's cool to see him in where he's at in his career, man. And to say I got to share the octagon with him it's a true honor. Hell of a fighter.
You talk about the list and stuff. Are there other guys like that, names that you look at and you think, oh yeah, from a legacy perspective, I'd like to get in there with them?
Back then, I mean, on that list, there wasn't there was good guys, but not, to me, not a guy like Jorge. Like he's like, I knew how good he was back then, and I was a huge fan. So it's like he's the guy that stood out to me. I mean, the guy with the man bun beating the crap out of guys, and and Kimbo Slice is patting him on the back when he gets done. Like on top of the fact he's beat the guys he has and fought for the Strikeforce title. I mean, that stands out to me more than any of the guys that were on that list.
Today.
Oh, today? Yeah, man. There are definitely some names I want to fight, but since I got into this camp for Neil, I've kind of put them to the wayside. Like I want to be very focused on this guy. I mean, you have one lapse in focus against Neil Magny, he's going to steamroll you. You know what I mean? And he puts a tremendous amount of pressure on his opponents. He's extremely confident. And I've been telling people, like, usually I have an idea of who I want to fight next. I've got a penchant for winning fights and calling guys out, and that's not on the fly. That's a premeditated thing. Like towards the end of camp, I'm like, okay, I kind of know who I want to fight next. I've seen how these matchups are like panning out, and seeing who's winning and who's losing, and knowing like what fights I could potentially get. You can't just jump on the mic and call for the champ unless you just want a number one contender fight. You got to do. Joe Silva gave me the best advice ever. He says, hey, make my job easier. If you win a fight, if you have a name in mind that makes sense, if you call them out after your fight, more often than not, you're going to get that fight. So ever since he told me that, I've just lived by that kind of rule I set for myself. I just kind of put that on the wayside this time. I'm solely focused on Neil Magny. I don't have a name that I want next. I don't have a list of guys. I got one guy, and that's Neil. So I'm focused on him, and that's it. And I think that'll pay its dividends come fight night.
Who'd you train with in Tucson?
Actually, it was a guy. So my teammate Tyler McGuire fought for the 1FC title, and he trained with us. He's active Air Force, so he's at Fairchild Air Force Base, and they restationed him in Tucson. And he actually trains at Joey Rivera's gym, who's on Neil's season. So it wasn't like we went there like, oh, this guy's got the secret. They were on Tough 9 years ago together. Like, no, it wasn't anything like that at all. It just happened to be where my buddy trains. And so, Joey's a tall guy himself, and there's a few other guys that were tall and rangy, and even though Tyler doesn't have the same build as Neil, I'm undefeated in fights where Tyler's been in my camp. So it would feel wrong to not go train with my man, Captain America, Tyler McGuire. But yeah, I got great looks down there. And it was good. And the big thing is, dude, you got to be safe. In the climate of what's going on right now, like none of us have had COVID, and I would be devastated, especially getting a main event spot. If it's like I took some chances to go get some different looks, or bringing a guy into Spokane to train at my gym, and I get sick because of it, and I lose this opportunity, that'd be devastating. So, it paid off, and we were smart about it. The numbers were small. It wasn't like we went into some huge. I didn't even really go to the PI this camp, and that's always been a staple for my camps since 2018. I'm like, their precaution they take very, the precautions they take right now are the best, but it's still like I'm playing it safe this card, or for this camp. I played it very safe, so we were able to make it work for me to get down there and get some looks in, and it was good.
Earlier, you briefly mentioned utilizing sports psychologists. I'm just wondering, is that something you've done, and if so, how's it helped?
Actually, my Uncle Joe, bless Uncle Joe's heart, Joe Corella, he's the sports psychologist for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's been with them for a long time, and he's always been a good source of especially that last camp going against RDA. I've never really utilized him a ton, but I finally was like, dude, I'm falling apart. Like, get me back in the game, Uncle Joe. I need you. And he did just that, and I talked to him yesterday, and we had a good conversation. But yeah, definitely. I can't honestly say that if I didn't have my uncle, that I would go search that person out. You know what I mean? I wouldn't go look for that resource. But I'm fortunate and I'm blessed to have one in my family that's a phone call away. So it's always good to have that ace in your hand. Uncle Joe knows what's up.
Do you think more athletes should be open to trying that sort of thing?
100%. I mean, this sport is 99% mental. I mean, I know guys a ton of guys that in the gym are just like, they work the hardest in the gym. They're killers. You'd think like this guy is like the next future world champion, but they're just inside. They don't have it. And that's a very hard thing to train. It's a hard thing to develop on your own. If you're struggling with mental issues in fighting and in life, it's hard to get through those things on your own. And I think sometimes, especially, you know, I think it could be hard to, especially as a fighter, to like make that decision to like, I need to seek out some help because mentally I'm having some issues with confidence or whatever it may be. But I think I encourage guys to do that. I think it can be very beneficial. And, you know, you hear a lot of guys doing that. A lot of guys are talking to mental coaches and sports psychologists. Some guys even go see like hypnotists, you know. So I talked to Uncle Joe, and I work as an analyst. My mind is strong. I am very sound between the ears. Yeah.
What did you think to the new cannabis anti-doping policy?
Oh, good. I'm glad I got to talk about that. I'm glad I got to talk about. I talk a lot. I'm sorry. I think it's great. I think it's really good. There's a lot of benefits to cannabis. It just has a bad stigma behind it. But I just think that, especially right now, I think the biggest thing is, and I don't, just to keep this short, in the climate of what we're going through in mixed martial arts right now, guys are stepping up on short notice and taking fights, and marijuana doesn't get out of your system that fast. So I think that there's got to be some type of change, or else these guys are going to get penalized. Like we can safely say at this point, it's just a plant. It's not a drug. And I think that it's very unfortunate when guys are getting opportunities to step up and fight on short notice and get big opportunities. And the fact that they, you know, used cannabis, you know, a short time before that call came, and it came back to bite him in the butt when the fight gets over. That's unfortunate. I feel like you got to lighten up for the climate and in the era of the sport that we're in right now. Guys are getting the call on short notice. You got to be ready to go. So I think it's the right move, so we don't have guys getting suspended, getting big wins overturned and things of that sort. I think it's the right move to make, and I hope to see the state athletic commissions make the move to adjust to the UFC's and USADA's new protocols.
Thanks, guys.
Sweet. Sorry, guys. See ya.